How many of you here tonight came to Buddha Day on Saturday? Okay, about a third or a fourth. Did any of you have anything you wanted to share with other people about it, or any experiences or enlightening moments you had at Buddha Day? Did you enjoy it? I thought it went really well. I love the martial arts, the guys doing the martial arts. I love that. I love their fans. They're big fans. Whenever they pop those, that's one of my favorite moments. We didn't have the dragons. Miss the dragons. Next year we'll have dragons. And I like the Indian dancers. But I realize that as nice as Buddha Day is, and it's a really nice experience, I prefer a group like this. I prefer just having this during the middle of the week. To me, this is such a real part of the practice. I mean, Buddha Day is wonderful. I don't want to diss it at all. But this being able to come together and meditate and have a discussion or a talk if we want to, and chant a little bit, to me that's the core for me of what this is all about. I mean, our individual practices, but just it doesn't have to be a full house or refreshments downstairs, although those are nice. But it's just really nice to be with other people and share an hour together during the week. The parade, but it was good. This was your first one. No, Judy, you've been to the Buddha Day before, haven't you? Or is this the first one?
I went to Sri Lanka, Taste. This was my first. The dancers made me cry. I don't know. It was just so beautiful.
They're so beautiful, right? Yeah.
A real calm.
Just beautiful, graceful movements too. Yeah. That's always the Indian dancing. We didn't have any Sri Lankan dancers this year. Maybe next year. So you just have to come next year to see the things we didn't have this year, and probably the same things we had. And Dylan's talk was really good. So Dylan usually comes on Wednesday night and sometimes on Saturdays, but he was the new person who gave a talk, and it was a great talk. It was really, really well done. He talked about his first experience coming to Blue Lotus. I never heard that story before. Did you know that? That he stopped and he was coming and he was late, and he lives way away in Aurora, so it's a long drive. And it was snowing, so he was afraid that was going to make him later. But then he saw a couple of cars stalled on the side of the road because of the snow. And he thought, well, I've got to hurry. I can't help because I've got to hurry to the temple to go to meditation. And then it occurred to him what he was saying. And so he stopped and helped, and his car got stuck, of course. So the three cars all together, they got each other unstuck. So he got to the meditation. He was late and embarrassed about coming in late, and it was the first time, and he thought he'd, do something real incorrect and embarrass himself. And being late, he thought he'd trip over somebody, or, all the things that we all think the first time we go somewhere. And then he talked about Bhante Sumana he asked Bhante Sumana the question, I guess that night, like, what is... or shared his story with him. I'm forgetting how he presented it, but he was talking about he missed part of the meditation, and Bhante Sumana was very emphatic, telling him when he asked him what meditation was. Bhante Sumana was very emphatic, telling him meditation is how we live our lives. It's the fruit of this practice, sitting on the cushion. That sitting on the cushion is just exercising. But the meditation was stopping and helping those people, and all the other things that we do in our lives when we can make a decision that's the best decision maybe at that moment. And he said that's always been a real strong memory, important memory for him. So.
And also every week, sometimes he come to temple Monday or Wednesday. After meditation, he taught us something meaningful English word every day.
Oh, that's right. He brings you a vocabulary word, doesn't he?
He helps us to build up English vocabulary.
So that's like his dana to the monks, isn't it? Yeah, I forgot about that. So it was a really good talk. It was a really good thing to think about. Sometimes we're hurrying to get somewhere, and where we need to be is on the side of the road. Be a little bit late to the big event and take care of what's right in front of us. So that was all good. So it was a good day, and it didn't rain on us or the parade. It didn't rain on the parade. I don't think it did it? It's getting hard to distinguish rainy days from non-rainy days with our weather lately. So most of the visitors have gone home. So today I took some people to the airport, and you've got people tomorrow that you're still taking around. So there are a lot of tired people here at the temple. I'm not as tired as the monks should be. So it's a good, inspiring day, and it's lovely to see the chanters. Of course, our chanting group is wonderful. And Bhante Asaji's the teacher this year, and I get to practice at the very end because I have to stand up and chant with the group on Buddha Day. But I don't teach the group. He does all the hard work, and I just get up and, for better for worse, get to chant with the group that day. But I think it was our best ever, and we were so down on people. We just had about 5 people in the group, and that the group had gotten smaller, and then some of the people we knew were going to be gone. So we put out a call for people who wanted to, at the last minute, come and be in the chanting group. And we ended up with about 16 or 17 in the group. And they all were singing. I mean, they were all chanting. I could hear everybody's voice. And that was really wonderful to see people coming out and saying, "Oh, I'll do it." And the rest of us had been practicing for a year, the 5 of us. And the new people had come just in the last, month maybe. But they did it, and we told them, if you can't do the chanting words, just move your mouths like you're saying watermelon, cucumber. Because someone told us that one of her teachers had told her that if you're in a choir and you forget the words, you just go, and it looks like you're singing, whatever. So that's been our joke for the last couple of months with the chanting group. But I didn't hear, thank goodness, any watermelon, cucumber, and I could hear individual voices. So those are good things. And then when Buddha Day's over, I have to get back on the precepts bandwagon. So I have to start talking about the precepts more. And I was thinking, okay, we're probably all kind of filled up to the top with the 5 precepts. But I thought I'd ask, does everybody remember the 5 precepts? The first 5. What's the first one? That's one of them, but that's not the first one. It's no killing, not to kill, and to do no harm, not to harm ourselves or others. Good. And the second one? No. I always want to say.
I think order. No intoxicants, no sexual misconduct, right speech, no killing.
Well, see, when I teach them, I don't tell them in order, but I've learned it's important to know them in order. Why is it, Bhante? Why is the order important? Just that we do things in order, right? The second one you said is not to take things that don't belong to us, right? No stealing. And we always expand that to talk about not violating like the property of others. Or the third one is sexual misconduct, and the fourth one is do not to tell a lie, and that's right speech, and then the fifth one is. Yes, and it's especially because our mindfulness is our entire practice. So alcohol and intoxicants and recreational drugs always cause us to lose our mindfulness. And so that seems to be the hardest one for people to be ready to take. Because most people will say, well, I don't want to give up a glass of wine with a nice dinner. I mean, it can be very, like a minor reason. But with the precepts, we always want to remind people that these are our intentions. We're not saying that we're always going to be successful with every one of them. And because if we were, we wouldn't need to take precepts, or we wouldn't need to have any kind of, personal precepts in our life. So these are things that I like to think of them now as all the 5 precepts can be said as our intentions for the day. And if we set our intentions, my intention is to do no harm to myself or anyone else. My intention is to be kind and truthful to everyone I meet. And my intention, and that being kind and truthful with these set up as intentions, sexual misconduct is not even included in that, because that's taken care of with being kind, doing no harm, and being honest covers right speech, and not to become intoxicated and heedless. So the opposite of mindfulness is heedlessness. So that's when we make an intention for the day not to lose our mindfulness or not to become heedless. That's taking care of any of the intoxicants that we consume, like too much shopping, too much eating, too much, binge watching on TV, and all of that can be covered, because all of that becomes an intoxicant for us to lose our mindfulness. That's what we turn to when we don't want to be clear, when we want to dive into our comfort things, our comfortable habit patterns. So if we just start our day making our own way of saying the precepts as our daily intentions, it starts us off in a good place. And then at the end of the day, we can just look back at that and see, how was my day? Did it help kind of having those intentions, remembering them in the morning? And I think that practice does. It really makes a difference. And if we do that regularly, it's good to see just try it and see how it changes your day. So we don't have to. I was talking to some of the people from Las Vegas who came. There were three people who came from Las Vegas, and they're part of the core group there with Blue Lotus Las Vegas. And they wanted to change the precepts. They were telling Bhante Sujata they didn't like the I will not, or I will. And we don't word the precepts that way anyway. If you've read the precepts or taken them, it's I undertake the training in doing no harm to any living being. I undertake the training not to take things that don't belong to me. And I undertake the training. So I love that I undertake the training too, because we can think of the precepts as just a new way to look at the importance of morality in our lives as meditation practitioners, because living a wholesome life gives us less to regret and less of that stuff that goes around in our mind all the time. A lot of times that's, I wish I hadn't done that, or, oh man, I'm sorry I, kicked the dog this morning before I left the house. I mean, those are the kind of things that are going around in our head that keep us a lot of times when we say, I just couldn't meditate, I had too much on my mind. If you think about it, sometimes a lot of that stuff on our mind might be an argument we got into with someone and we regret the words we said, or we wish we hadn't shouted at them and ended the conversation abruptly. So I think if we use the precepts as our training, like our training wheels, it makes our life lighter, just like in the we believe, that generosity makes our hearts feel lighter, stronger and lighter. I think looking at those precepts as things to train in make our lives lighter, because we have less sort of weighing down on our shoulders like, am I doing this right? Or maybe I could have been kinder, maybe I could have stopped for that car. Those kind of things we don't have to worry about that. We can be pretty clear when we've gone over when we've gone over the edge with our behavior, but we can also be pretty clear when, this has been a good day. I've noticed people that maybe I don't notice all the time. I've reached out to people. I've been kind to myself. Didn't beat on myself as much today as I usually do. We can really look at our day and see it that way and feel good about it. And that'll make our meditation much easier to do. And easier to concentrate, I think, and get into that good place. So I was wondering, I kept telling the people from Las Vegas, send me a copy of the precepts you guys take, because it doesn't say, thou shalt not. And I think sometimes we hear it a different way because we may have had a negative experience in Sunday school or something sometime in another life. And none of it's rigid. It's all, I'd like to undertake this training. And that's true for the intoxicants too. I think it's good for us to know what our personal intoxicants are, and then undertake the training to understand that. Whatever it is that we move to become, to cloud our minds, that's probably something that's a personal favorite as an intoxicant. And then we can look at that. We can undertake the training to watch that in our lives. And then we can see, okay, maybe I don't have a problem with any kind of alcohol or drugs, but I do have a problem with when I get, maybe I go out and spend too much money when I'm feeling overloaded, or I back away from being with my friends and I just become a couch potato for several days. So we can look and see what we do in our own lives to become intoxicated, to become heedless. And then we can start just looking at it, becoming aware of it is the biggest way to solve the problem. We can see if it's a problem, first of all, or see if there's something that's kind of pulling us down. And then by just keeping our awareness on that, we'll see it dissolve for us. It doesn't have to be something, we don't have to suddenly become, a perfect person. There's no way that's going to happen. And if you think you become perfect, then you'll up your standards, right? So you have to become super double perfect. And that's not the point. That's not what the Buddha wanted, and that's not what we want. What we want to do is see the things that make our lives better and more like the life of a bodhisattva, and see the things that don't make us happy and don't make us don't help us move out in our lives. So it's really to take care of ourselves. So when we finish with the 5, taking the 5, in a year, some people will take the 8 precepts that we call the lifetime precepts. And some people stick with the 5 and they're happy with that, and they ought to be happy with it. I feel like I'm always working on the 5. I've taken 211 to become a nun. Isn't it 211 and fewer for the men, right? I always like to, and I always say it's because the women can take that many. But out of that 211, the 5 precepts are the ones the 5 are the essential ones. That's the core of them. Everything else just stems from that, is a little offshoot of that. So, but people who are inclined to take the 8 will take the 8 after they've at least had a year with the 5. And the only difference with the 8 is we add more about speech. And that's the proof that you need to know how important our speech is. Because we keep all of the initial 5, but then we add to that, we don't engage in harsh speech or malicious speech or chatter is kind of the translation that the Buddha in the Pali word. And chatter is everything else we do, all the talk that we like so much. So chatter is mindless speech, and that's gossip and talking about things that are really unimportant. That's the hardest. So when we undertake and speech is just a huge part of what we do and what we think about, and we focus on it in the Buddha's teachings. But if you think about, everybody thinks about their own life. Our speech it's the thing that once it's out there, we can never take it back. I mean, think of times that you've said something in anger that you try to apologize for later. And once you say it to a person, it's almost impossible you can't erase it. You can apologize for it, but it's always there. And usually that person remembers what you said. And sometimes that's very harmful, because as human beings, we tend to take things personally, which ought to be one of the 8 precepts. Don't take anything personally. Because it's, if we could not take it personally, we would understand that person's angry. They said something without being mindful about it. They'll probably apologize later, and it doesn't hurt me. But I think it's very human. I don't know anybody who doesn't sometimes get hurt by the things. I haven't met that person yet who's really not ever affected by another person's speech. So when we move to those 8 precepts, that's what we really need to focus on, is continuing with the 5 and adding more about speech. And you certainly don't wait to take those precepts until you've perfected it. You take the precepts when you decide, maybe for this year I'm going to really work on my speech. When you really are ready to tackle really getting into things like balance and equanimity, I think, because that is it's that, you know, when our speech goes wrong, good speech gone bad, it's when we get real emotional about stuff, real passionate about stuff, or we're really up and down emotionally. So then we'll say things that pretty quickly we'll wish we hadn't said, especially if it's to people we love. And so when we work with the qualities like equanimity and patience, that's when we really begin to be able to look at our speech differently and look at emotions, difficult emotions like anger. Because if we're angry, pretty much anything that comes up is probably going to come out. And so we've got to be ready to work with all those things if we want to really watch our speech. And we also know with speech, when the Buddha talks about it, it needs to be at the right time and at the right place. And it's got to be true, and it's got to be necessary, and then it's got to be kind. So there are all kinds of conditions, even if we're going to anything that we're going to say, we have to be aware of all those right conditions. So that takes patience on our part, and it takes careful attention, mindfulness, and it takes listening probably more than we talk. So that's the exciting part about the 8 precepts. And then after that, there are some people who want to go ahead and take we call the 10 precepts, which are the bodhisattva. We call the bodhisattva vows. And in the Mahayana tradition, there are 6, right? Bhikkhuni Dhammika you should teach about the bodhisattva vows, because you know more about those. So I'm not going to put her on the spot right now. But we think the bodhisattva, the concept of a bodhisattva is more prominent in the Mahayana tradition. And those are we see Kuan Yin, our statue outside, the big white one, is a bodhisattva. And so she's the bodhisattva of compassion. And so those qualities are embodied in her. She's a symbol for compassion. And so everything about her hands and what she's doing and how the bodhisattvas are sitting and the way they're painted are symbols of that quality. So we have 10 qualities that we have in our tradition here in Theravadan. We have 10 paramitas, and those are just 10 qualities. And the people who take the bodhisattva vows are undertaking, they're committing to understanding those 10 qualities. And it's generosity, virtue, renunciation, energy, and wisdom. I actually know them in the Pali, and I have to translate it to English. Patience and determination and metta, loving kindness, and the 5th one is equanimity. We think the 10th one is equanimity. But those are the qualities that are basically our dedicating everything in our training in this life and our actions and our whole kind of is the stuff we can keep studying for the rest of this life and many, many, many more. The Buddha was a bodhisattva, and he supposedly he lived literally, I'm sure, millions of other lives, because eons and eons of lives over and over. So that's kind of like an eon is like a whole world system turning over. And so it took all of those different lifetimes of being a bodhisattva from early on to get to the perfection of being a Buddha. So it's a long, long journey. We can all make it. I mean, anybody can do it, but you got to be sure you're patient. You have to have that quality of patience because it takes a long time. So those qualities, we don't have any lay precepts after that, because those 10 give you enough to work with all the time. But we're all working on those 10 right now, because that includes the 5 precepts, and it includes everything that we talk about all the time. Those are all qualities that you can take one of those qualities and use it as something to study. Just write all the 10 qualities on little note cards, and then see if you'll start seeing those qualities in everything you pick up to read. So there are different ways that people, when they take those precepts, different people study. Some people use it in their meditation, and they kind of go through the qualities and go through them again and look at them on more subtle levels. But that's what we're doing already. So we're sort of already doing all these things. So the ceremonies are ceremonies that they don't mean very much, but it's sometimes a nice thing to do as a group, just because you feel a connection with that group. And that's part of being a sangha, part of being part of the community. So you can you're a little closer maybe to people in that group, or you have a nice memory of that day. But you can take the precepts without going through a ceremony. But you do get a Buddhist name. If you do the ceremony, you get your own Buddhist name. So, and a certificate. So there are some good things about it, and a kata. So we'll be talking more about that, but we'll start putting a sign-up sheet for people who are interested. October the 12th is the day that we have precepts. So people need to have 6 months of meditation practice under their belt before they take the 5 precepts. So be thinking about it. You might want to even just attend the precept classes that we have. Even if you're not going to take the precepts this year, you can come to those classes just to get more information about it. So, thank you.